Hello. Earlier this year, start of October, I was up in Boston visiting family. One of the things I really wanted to do was go see the Boston Library. Not the new part, the old part, because it looked fabulous. The murals by John Singer Sargent were there, that room that has the paintings of Sir Galahad from King Arthur's stories. Then there's also the Bates Hall. That's the old study room in there. And I was intrigued by that because I just wanted to experience what it's like to study in a big city, because I'm not from a big city. I'm a small town girl. So I made it to the Boston Library, breathed in and went, I'm going to go to the Bates Hall. Pushed the doors open and my goodness, it was serene. It was awesome. And I put to myself, I said, I've got this time allocated for the library. I'm going to go and find a book and just skim through it or read it in the Bates Hall. So I looked over some of the bookshelves that were there, and all I was really finding was calculus, commentary on the U.S. Constitution, and, law. And I went, I don't want to read those. There must be something in there. Then a little book caught my eye, and I said, you're coming with me. That book had a long title, and it is called How to Be Well Read, A Guide to 500 Great Novels and a Handful of Literary Curiosities, by John Sutherland. Cool. Grabbed that, pulled out a chair, sat down, and started skimming through it. It was great. Just skimming through it and feeling quite peaceful. And picking that book, I don't know if it was kind of divine providence, but it opened my eyes to a whole bunch of books. And I'd like to hopefully share my review of a skim through of the book, because I didn't really read it. I just skimmed through for the however long I was there for. What I do want to mention is that this book, the title is a complete lie. It's more than 500 books. Once you reach the end of it, there's a little appendix going, here are some notable mentions that are another dozen books. So it's more than 500, which is bonus. You'd rather have more than less, I suppose. Now, I had looked up of John Sutherland. It turns out he's a professor of modern English literature in the UK. Very well read, and that's reflected in this book because you open it up, and because of his extensive reading and clear knowledge of the English language that's better than mine, he's done a summary of about 700 words for a whole bunch of books. Holy guacamole, it's awesome. So my little summary here, I decided to break up into the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll start with the good. The good was a little bit of pride in myself, because flicking through, I go, I've read that book. Yes, I've read that. Yeah. One of the ones I could think about was War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy and Black Beauty. I went, yes, I've read those, and they're great, great books. But his summaries were much more succinct than mine. Because if someone asked me about War and Peace, you'd have to give me 20 minutes to 3 hours to get out a quick summary. Whereas he did 700 words, a good summary of the whole story, plus some good and... No, there wasn't any bad about it. Just mention the good, because, hey, it's a classic story. The bad of reading this book, or skimming through it, was realizing that I'm only looking at the English literature, the English classics, things like Leo Tolstoy or Fyodor Dostoevsky. I'm looking at books like that. This fella has picked up authors from all around the world and compiled it in this book. Authors from Israel, Africa, Middle East, and Spain. I got one here that I wrote down. Vicente Blasco Ibanez. Also a bunch of Japanese authors. The ones that I took note of was Kenzaburo Oe and Haruki Murakami. Those are the ones that I took note of. So looking at that, I went, hey, there is much more. There's always books being translated to any other language in the world, and he's picked up some that would have not appeared on my radar. So I was surprised at how I went, I need to expand my reading, not just of the traditional English exciting classics. Why not look elsewhere throughout the world and see what other people all around the world are bringing up? Now the ugly. The ugly was, how do I put this? Curiosity killed the cat, but through this book, satisfaction brought it back. I was quite surprised when I opened the book, going under L, finding Lolita being recommended. Lolita was written by Vladimir Nabokov. That is got a little premise around it, and of course, I think the topic on it, what's the word? I'm not going to say the P word, but what's the politically correct word? What am I looking for? Starts with an N. Starts with an H. Hebephilia. look up that word if you're intrigued. But that's the main thing. I remember seeing the movie with Jeremy Irons in it, Max's Irons' dad, and seeing that going, oh, I would not want to watch that because this topic is just, it makes me ill, makes me sick. Anything that's harming children or anything that's not, they haven't fully formed their ego, so anything that stunts that or warps it in a bad way makes me very, very sick. And Lolita is, what's it about? It's about an older gentleman and a young girl who can't really escape the situation and controlling and nothing that I'd really want to read. And through this book by John Sutherland, he laid it out going, yep, that's what it's about. But it's a good storytelling. It's got good language in it. So read it for that. Even if the other topics isn't your thing, read it for this because it is a good story. And I went, well, thank you, John. I thank you for your summary. And this has confirmed that even though I'm curious about this book, I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to read it because I know myself well enough that if I read something like that, it will fester in my mind. It will just sit there and grow into some horrible, horrible something that I'll always go back to. A good example of that is I watched a horror sci-fi movie called Event Horizon many years ago. The hell scenes are literally burned into my brain and I can't get them out. Like I've not seen that movie for years, over 5 years. But still, sometimes I go, because that image of some of the portals into the black hole of Event Horizon are still there. So linking that up with something that like Lolita being written in that, I think I'll save my brain space for something more productive. Thank you. So thanks, John, for that little summary. So I will not read that book. Overall, it is a good read. It's a good read and a good book maybe to have handy because if you're looking for something to read, something outside of your scope, this would have enough to keep you occupied. Well over 500 books, as I explained earlier. And if you're looking for summary, like with Lolita, you can go, hey, yep, that looks like something I would want to read. Let's go out, let's buy it, or go to a second-hand shop, grab it and bring it home. Oh, or the handheld book. I don't own one of those things. What's it called? A Kindle. You can buy it there and read it for yourself. And if you like it, good. And if you don't, well, you have a quick summary and you wouldn't have wasted your time getting it, reading it, and going, that was not the best read of the decade. Well, thank you for watching my little review of, what's it called again? Of How to Be Well Read, a guide to 500 great novels and a handful of literary curiosities by John Sutherland. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Oh, I smacked my microphone.